Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today, I think we're on Fish Friday number 168, or at least I hope that it is. As you can see, I'm not at my normal setup. I didn't really have a fish today. I needed to cook. So I'm out here grilling. Right now the grill's warming up, and I was thinking, why don't we have a Fish Friday a little bit about me, but more specifically why first, and then how I became a aquatic ecologist, or for people who don't understand, a fisheries biologist, specifically a freshwater fisheries biologist. There's dogs, there's chickens, you might see a duck or a turkey come by. So I guess let's just get started in this. So it's important for me first to tell you exactly how I grew up. I grew up on a farm and ranch in Texas, which growing up on that farm and ranch has caused me to be very aware of nature and conservation issues. You're very much aware of grass issues and nutrition, animal nutrition, when you grew up on that farm and ranch, taking care of animals. So, like probably many other kids, when I first started my journey, or when I was younger basically, I wanted to be a vet. I never really was much of a farmer or rancher. Well, I should say, never really wanted to be a farmer or rancher, but I was like, I'm gonna be a vet. Well, that didn't pan out. I really decided that I didn't have an interest in that. So I didn't know what I was gonna do. Then I was like, you know what, maybe I should go into some sort of biology degree. And my parents were like, yeah, that makes sense. You're very good at science, very good at math. Yeah. So I started sort of shopping around in colleges, and the choices basically came down to TCU, Texas Christian University, and West Texas A&M, which is where I eventually went to, West Texas A&M. And when I went there, there was such a heavier focus on wildlife. And that's when I realized that I didn't want to do biology, I wanted to do wildlife biology. Growing up, I grew up hunting, I grew up fishing, I loved being outdoors, I loved the nature. In wildlife biology, I was like, that's a perfect fit. And then I went to college for that, and then I realized not only was that a perfect fit, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to manage wildlife. But there comes a point in time when you really have to kind of pick which direction you're gonna go. And this came a little later on in my college. I've been doing wildlife biology, this entire time, and I was like, you know what? We need to start thinking about my master's thesis. So I approached my professor, got some ideas from him, and he came out and said, well, how about this? How about that? So I first started, actually, if you could believe it, the very first thesis that I was going to do was actually over roadrunners, greater roadrunners. Sorry, the AC just kicked on. I hope it doesn't screw up the video too much. Unfortunately, I can't leave because all the food is close to me, and I gotta make sure that none of these dogs go around here, like vultures, don't run over there and snatch anything. So I hope it doesn't screw anything up. But my professor said, okay, if you want to do roadrunners, fine, we'll set up a thesis. But he said, I want you to take the summer and really figure out, is that what you want to do? Because he told me, which I understand now, when you do a thesis, you need to love what you're doing or you're going to hate your life. And I was like, that makes sense. Now, I should also mention that every time I went back home, I had two friends that we always went fishing in this one pond. We'd catch 50 fish a night, staying out till 2, 3 in the morning, just fishing. fishing by headlamps, by flashlights. Oh, it was a grand old time. And what happened, this is where it actually started. I was home that summer fishing, and my friend said, "Hey, what is this, Levi?" Because we had caught a new fish. And I was like, "Oh, it is a black bullhead." "Oh, really? How do you know that?" And I was like, "Oh, well, you look at this, this, and this." Actually, black bullhead, if you want to know, a rounded caudal fin, muddy coloration, and the whiskers, the barbels on the chin, are darker than the skin of the belly. That's how you know you have a black bullhead. And I told them this, and they're like, "Wow, that's so cool." And I had such a good feeling from that, like teaching someone else about fish and just the fishing in general, because I had always loved fishing more than hunting. And that's when I came back that next year and I said, I want to do fish. So, long story short, that's when I began my fisheries thesis. I won't really go into too in-depth about my thesis. Maybe that can be another future video. I do actually a presentation. I think I still have the PowerPoint about my thesis. Maybe if you would enjoy that, leave a comment down below. And then anyway, in the process of all this, right before I started my master's, I met my wife, Mrs. P. And she said, "We're gonna live where I grew up." And that's when I was like, okay. And that's when I became to realize that finding a job in natural resources is very hard. I do student mentoring at a conference every year. And these students, I tell them, if you are not willing to move, take seasonal works and everything, you are going to have to get very lucky to find a job. I got excessively lucky. An organization wound up, me and them got connected through a very roundabout way. Actually, I was volunteering at a community event around here, and I met someone who happened, and we had a long talk about a lake nearby, and I met that lady, and she said, "Well, let me give you this number." And it wound up being my general manager's number, my current boss. And turns out that she is actually the wife of the president of our board of directors. And that's how I got into that. And then that's when I became much more of that aquatic ecologist. And once I shifted, a lot of my job duties now don't necessarily revolve around fish. They became much more in-depth at looking at watershed ecology, looking at the fish, at the bugs, at the plants, at the trees, at the water quality, and looking to see if the ecosystem is operating at efficiency, or that everything is operating as it should, and that you don't have degraded water quality from pollution or things like that. So that's where it sort of transitioned into this aquatic ecology field, not biology field, where biology, you're really only looking at the organisms in their environment. Whereas in ecology, you're looking at the interactions between organisms and their environment. So right now, my job duties really heavily focus on, are the fish healthy, and is the water quality able to support their current health, and things like that. That's where I've sort of transitioned and how I became there. So the long story short is, first I became, I grew up with a love of the outdoors, hunting and fishing. And then I took that passion, that love that I had, and the intelligence that I had as well, that I was like, I want to make a career out of this. And that career, there were so many steps along the way that could have been so different. For instance, if I had never met Mrs. Ping, I would probably be in Alaska or Montana, which is sort of like a little haven for young people to get in fisheries biology work. And so, yeah, it was a good thing that I met her, obviously, because I got baby Ping and everything else. But I love where I'm at now, and it's been an amazing journey, and it's been an amazing ride. So yeah, so that is the story of how I went from a farm and ranch kid and with a love of the outdoors, and took it and devoted myself to a science, and then became a fisheries biologist or an aquatic ecologist. But I hope you really enjoyed this. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you do. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Regardless, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and peace.